This is Jonathan Lane from Fan Film Factor today with my beard and my guest who also has a beard, Mr. Kent Words Edwards. He has just released a fan film called Words Women. The apostrophe is optional, folks. I wanted to bring Kent on here for a number of reasons. Well, actually, I shouldn't call you Kent. You actually like being called Words. That's your name, right? As far as
Well,
everybody's concerned.
yeah, as far as the fan films go, I told the story last night that one of the things that I was ran into a problem with early on was the first production I went and helped on in the fan film. It was for Kent's, and I figured I was the new one. Everybody else had been there more than me, and I figured, well, if I go ahead and use that, nobody's going to remember me compared to the other Kents that were there before. So I went back and I used my nickname from high school that a bunch of my friends still call me, and that was Words. So I figured, well, people will remember me that way. So I just kind of kept on going with it and using it every fan film that I had any part in.
Now, is that Words from Edwards as your last name, or do you just
Yeah,
okay?
it
I was
is.
wondering if you
Yeah.
use a lot of words, if that was
Well, that came about later. A couple of jokes about the word from Words. Yeah, but yeah.
I use a
So,
lot of words. Just read my blog.
right.
Hey, you know what? It's the internet. There's no space limit, and people are going to say, yeah, but I have a time limit. I can't read everything you write, Jonathan. I have to.
Correct.
It's okay. I like to say about my blogs, I would have written less, but I didn't have enough time. Uh,
I hear you on that.
So anyway, if you're one of those folks out here that's never heard of Kent Words Edwards, don't feel bad about it because he doesn't have quite the notoriety amongst the fan film world. I mean, those of us who are kind of insiders know about Words, but there are definitely fan filmmakers out there that have so we say a wider public image. Alec Peters and Dick Magnana and James Cawley, and to a slightly lesser extent, Vance Major and Glenn Wolfe and Dan Reynolds of Wolfe Reynolds Productions and Warp 66 Studios and Gary Davis of Dreadnought Dominion and Frank Parker. I mean, the list goes on and on. But if you say
Worked
Words,
with all of them.
that's the thing, is that Words has. I mean, I looked you up on IMDb yesterday. You've directed like 20 different fan films.
Right.
You were part of the production department on others. You've been all over the place, and a lot of them, granted, were Vance Major's Menard stuff and Constar stuff. But you also
Right.
worked on the Federation Files, and
Mhm.
you were a mover and shaker of Starbase Studios back when that was still around.
Yeah.
I mean, you're fairly close by. I mean, when you talk about those big square states in the middle of the country, you're in what? You're in Kansas, is that
Kansas.
correct?
Yep. Right on the border of Kansas and Missouri.
Okay. So, for you to get to Oklahoma City back when Starbase Studios was still there, how long of a drive was that for you?
It's about 5.5 hours.
So you probably didn't necessarily, drive there and drive back for the day. You probably stayed overnight,
Oh
right?
yeah, I had to stay over. Yeah, I would drive after work on Fridays, and literally get there at almost 9:30 to 10. And then we would have a little chat that night, and then the next day we started shooting, and I left Sunday afternoon most of the time, and got back to work for Monday. But it was there was a lot of quick turnarounds and some long hours, almost falling asleep on the way back a couple of times because we had such long shoots.
That's true. Back in those days, it was fun long shoots though.
Oh yeah, they were all fun. I would love to do that all over again. Absolutely. Yeah, it
Well,
was.
don't get to the end of the interview yet when I ask you to do that in the future. Don't
Right.
jump ahead, folks. We got to go through the whole interview first. So anyway, so back in the old days, when did you get involved with Starbase Studios? When was that? Did that start
I'm
for you?
trying to think. It was oh shoot. And I don't quote me on the years, but I think it was 2016 maybe.
So
I'm
just before the move, then, huh?
Yeah. Oh, it was about no, I had about 2 years before the move.
Well, then that would be
So
2015 then, because the
this will
move.
be into 20. I was guessing 16, but yeah, it's probably big. And yeah, I used to go in just to assist because I was good friends with Scott Johnson. So, I just kind of every time they needed an extra person to help out, you gave me a call, I showed up. So I was happy to help out where I could on those.
Now, what kind of help did you do? Obviously, I know you
Um,
directed a bunch of Advances films, but on other levels, what did
Right.
you do?
It kind of started off as one of the things that I seem to have a good eye for was especially during the bridge scenes, because, being a fan of Trek and watching it ridiculously numbers of times, I became quite aware of what I thought the original filmmakers were doing with the camera movements and a lot of that kind of stuff. And so I quickly could catch those non-Star Trek looks before they got filmed, and we make minor tweaks maybe, or I was just looking for somebody to not press 3,000 buttons on the helm nav table during, so that the post-production guy didn't have to put 4 million clickings, on the on that. And so that's kind of
Not a
what I
piano, folks. It's not a piano.
yeah, yeah. But there were a lot of shows where it was, dee, 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 all over the place. And that's kind of what I started doing. Funny thing is I got nicknamed the word station, which was a TV that I brought with me, and we just hooked it up to the camera or whatever camera was brought, and 90% of the time just hooked it up, and we would, I just simply watch for the obvious, pretty much, and letting the other people concentrate more on the actors and helping people to do, to get the most out of the actors. I just kind of was the quality control guy behind the scenes.
Now, eventually, you became a director for many of Vance's early fan films. And what for you? What was direction? So, I mean, what did you do as a director, both before the production started, during the production, and then post production?
Okay. Mostly, especially with Vance's productions, basically, he pretty much, I pretty much said to him, I don't want to know anything about the story. I don't want any pre-production. I don't want to know the script. I don't want to know any of that, because I felt that if you pre-plan too much, then when you direct the actors that you have to work with, some of them change from story to story. And to try to help get the best out of that, I felt that if I didn't go in with preconceived notions about how to direct the actor, that and I just was able to think on the fly. And so I got to the point where I had to substitute for some other productions, as the sort of assistant director, or, call some of the shots before I started helping Vance. And I knew nothing about the story because I wasn't originally supposed to do that, help them out. So it was like, okay, I didn't need to have a whole lot of information. And I just kind of worked on, trying to make it look as much Trek like, and help the actors to get out some of the stuff that they needed to, while we were shooting, and kind of went into it with no notion about, I want to do this or I want to do that as director. I said, okay, here's what the actor can do. Here's what they can't do. Let's work with that. Work on the fly. That was Vance Majors. He liked that because it was, it seemed to make his film turn out a little better.
Now,
So,
when somebody was delivering a line and it was the way that you did not want it, as a director,
right.
what did you do? What did you try to get out of them that they weren't giving you?
I would simply say, hey, that's great. Now let's try it a little bit, a little bit more, uh, whatever in that particular scene that, that I felt we could maybe get a little bit more out. You know, I try not to be belligerent about, anything like that, because it was, what are they capable of doing? And so some of the actors, you could say, hey, okay, you did it, that's fine, let's try it again, so we got more than one option. But some people could act a little more, so say, let's take that and go one step further and try another, a different move with their body, or a different move with what they said or how they said it, and just kind of tried to, get a little bit more out of the person that was, doing the acting.
It's interesting you should say that
Mhm.
because I don't think a lot of people. I mean, obviously, people realize that there's a difference between an actor like J.G. Hertzler or Gary Graham, who's really really well trained, and somebody who just sort of comes in off the street and I'm a Star Trek fan. I want to be in your fan film. One
Right.
one person has literally gone through years and years, possibly decades of training and experiences, and one person is like, oh, that doesn't look so tough. Um, but you're the first person who's really said, there's certain capabilities that certain
Right.
fans have that others don't, and
Right.
there's some people who just aren't capable. It's nothing bad about them. It's just, most
No.
people are, just like, pardon me, some people can't sing. It's not like,
Right.
you haven't had enough training.
Right.
Your voice just isn't, your throat is not the right shape, and of
Mhm.
course you haven't studied musical theory and you haven't done
Right.
all this other stuff. So if you're asked to sing, you might suck, or at least, certainly not going to be able to go on American Idol anytime soon. So, I find it interesting to be aware of that, that you're
Yeah, that
dealing.
it didn't come to me right away, because in the early fan films that I was a part of, I felt like sometimes, these people were Star Trek fans, and they were great Star Trek fans. As actors, they they're amateurs, so they don't really know what they're doing as an actor. And I had seen enough fan films with enough techno babble and kind of, um, not much emotion, and lines are delivered, but there's not anything to make you feel
Yeah.
the character. And so what I tried to do when I directed was I tried to get the lines done as quick as we could, but I also tried to go and get that little 1-2% more whenever
Yeah.
we could make it happen. It wasn't always successful, but we tried. So yeah, that I think was the difference. Some people you could try that more with than others, but I just wanted it to be more than delivering the lines.
But yeah, I just sort of feel like, in some cases the fans are doing their best just to get through
Right.
the dialogue, and it's all they can do to just remember the lines that they have.
Yeah, there
uh
was a couple of productions where we had actors come in because somebody didn't show up, and basically we had to fake the far away shots, where they basically didn't know the line. And then when went in for the close-ups later, we would spoon feed them the line,
yeah.
so we could get through it, on the close-ups. And that those kinds of things you have to do when you're doing a fan film, because people can't make it, people come late, people don't show up, you know all
i
that.
was I was watching George Clooney, I believe it was, who was getting awarded. No, it might have been Tom Hanks. It was a Lifetime Achievement Award, but I think it was Tom Hanks. And when he said, he said the one thing that I've learned as an actor, the most important thing that we can do is show up
Right.
on time. Because a lot of times one person missing from the production, everybody else has to wait if it's a key person. And in most productions, everybody is a key person. I mean, unless you're the production assistant getting people coffee, but the PAs are always there anyway.
Right.
But if you're an actor, if you're taking too long to get into a scene or whatever, everybody else is literally waiting for you.
Right.
So one of my biggest frustrations with fan films I hear about, and we'll talk about this, a little bit with, Words Women that we're going to talk about sooner or later, is that, people don't show up sometimes. And I realize, life is busy, and, these fan films are volunteer situations. You're not getting paid for them. It's not like, you're making a huge paycheck and you've contractually committed to some of this stuff. But at the same point in time, if you lose a key person, so many things can fall apart, and that will, lead us into a discussion of Words Women. But before we get there, I just want to ask you really quickly, do you have acting or directing experience, or has this all just come out of the world of fan films?
Believe it or not, it all came out of the world of fan films. Well, that's not entirely correct in one way, because I used to do a lot of weddings, reunion videos and stuff with a guy that's my editor now for when I do fan film stuff. And we did, I don't know how many weddings videos where you kind of have to initiate some kind of get the group of people to do something, so you're not just filming them eating dinner. You have to kind of think on the fly. And so I had a little bit of that that I had done years before doing any of the fan film stuff that I could draw upon as well. And but yeah, most of what I learned on fan films was just helping other people make their fan films.
And then this happened. Now, so Words Women, just so you folks know, that you filmed the original scenes were filmed what year?
It was May 19th of 2018.
Okay. May 19th of 2018. It is now 2021. So
right.
This was a fan film, quote unquote, 3 years in the making.
Right.
Let's very quickly talk about, just very briefly, the history of Starbase Studios. I'll start off and then you can take up.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, Starbase Studios was the location for, I guess, about 6 or 7 years of a bridge set that had been built initially in Texas, in Austin, Texas, for the second episode of Starship Exeter.
Correct.
And at the time, James Cawley had his partial bridge set. Farragut was in the process of building a partial bridge set, and the folks at Exeter had actually beat Farragut to that, but they built the only 360-degree bridge set, which I hear was awesome. I never actually saw it, but to be in the center of that must have been incredible.
It was incredible. It was always incredible.
And I've been on the Ares bridge set, which is also 360, and when you're standing on that, you're surrounded by it, and you're just suddenly thinking, I am on a starship. I mean, I realize, yes, right. I'm in a studio in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and whatever, but you're just in that moment. You can almost just imagine yourself. This is my office that I work in space.
Yeah, it's a fun experience.
So anyway, the bridge set was found rotting, literally, in this barn. They had filmed on it in 2004, and by 2010, it had gotten rain damage and mold and mildew, and anyway, components of this were brought to Oklahoma City.
Yep.
And fortunately, after trying to put it in an airplane hangar, which had rent that had to be paid, there was a spot found in in basically a metal building. It was a warehouse.
I think it used to be a double cola facility at one point in time in its history, and then it was sort of in a not great place in Oklahoma City. But yeah,
But it
go
was
ahead.
it was free because the guy who owned the building, I think he did estate sales or whatever. So he used it as a warehouse, but he was a Trekkie.
Yeah,
And the concept of having a bridge set inside here that he could go and visit anytime he wanted to was kind of cool. So he gave them free rent, and during
right.
that time, so many different fan films were shot there. Starship Valiant and Starship Grissom, the Red Shirt Diaries. All of Vance's early Menard stuff was there. And so, it was this wonderful place that fans could use pretty much just for the cost of the electricity that you used for the day. It
Yep.
didn't have air conditioning. It didn't have heat. If you filmed in December or January, you could see your breath while you were
Yep.
filming. If you filmed in July or August, people were literally spritzing all over the place.
Oh yeah.
So, but that's the way we fan films, we fan filmmakers like it. So, uh, anyway, at the end of 2016, I believe it was, the lease, well, it wasn't that the lease was lost, the owner of the building sold the building. And the new owner did not want to have half of his building taken up by a non-paying Star Trek fan film bridge set, which by that point had grown to a transporter room and a sick bay and a partial briefing room, corridors.
Yep.
And so things were moved temporarily to Dogpatch, Arkansas, which is, I think, where they were when you filmed in 2018.
That's correct.
And shat happened, shall we say. Now, do you want to take it over from there and tell folks what happened after it left Oklahoma City?
Yeah. We reached a point, and it's difficult for me to talk about this somewhat because I was on one side of the argument, and the it's still in my gut, and I really have struggled with it. It's interfered with some things personally, but and long story short was that there became a dispute over the ownership of, at the time, to start with, the idea was that this was a labor of love. There were hundreds of people that volunteered to rebuild it, fix it, finish it, act in it, and all this stuff, and everybody kind of treated it like it was a non-for-profit. It was, you donated your time, you donated your anything. The transporter room was built that way, and the briefing room and all the tables and everything was all done sort of on a volunteer donation type style. When we got to Arkansas, that there was an idea that we were going with, that we were going to create two businesses. One was going to manage the fan film people coming into the studio, and that would be the Starbase Studios as you know it now. That's it's still a legitimate business, although I have it tabled right now. And then the other one was going to be who owned the actual studio. The reason for doing it in two separate businesses was so that we could keep fan film creation happening without jeopardizing the owners having repercussions come from CBS if somebody did something wrong. It was to be that way, and that's the way that it was talked about doing it. Unfortunately, the long story short was that there became a dispute over ownership and who owned what, and who you should control what. And instead of everybody doing it for the love of Star Trek, it became, oh, this is mine, or this is mine, or this is mine. And after a while, I got tired of it and decided I wanted to get out. I just wanted to worry about the people who were coming to film there. I didn't want to be an owner anymore because I didn't want to fight that battle endlessly. And that's what happened. and
And I was there
you were part of
for
it.
I was part of it. I was
Mhm.
I was trying to be the mediator. I was trying to make
Right.
everybody happy. It ultimately it did not work.
No.
And we tried, and we had a lot of very passionate people.
Right.
But this was where things were going into 2018.
Right.
The sets were still in some need of repair, which you can see
Right.
in your fan film.
Right.
But it was at this point that you all decided, or as you say in the South, y'all decided to make a commercial.
Right. That's yeah.
And so tell us about that. So let's
Yeah.
transition into what became Words Women. So
Yeah.
go.
Initially, what we were going to do was we were going to create it as a commercial, and what we were going to do is we were going to shoot. We were going to recreate some of the Muds women intro scenes and kind of recast them and kind of form it into a commercial. After a while, it became pretty clear that what we needed to really do was write a unique story and then use multiple endings with the final carrot to be okay. Now, if you want to make a fan film, how would you end this story as the third ending? And we were going to do that and do a bunch of interviews with the people who came and acted or volunteered or whatever it was, and piece this all together on the Starbase Studios Facebook site and release it there as a, hey, come and make a fan film.
You too can do this.
Yeah, you too can do this. Unfortunately, after I left as an owner, it became clear to me that this was, I needed to get everybody back together and work as a group. And so that's exactly what we tried to do with this commercial too, was get all of us together who were originally part of the dispute, get them all together, get them working together, and see if we could get past this and, get back to doing what we all wanted to do when we moved it from Oklahoma.
Maybe
Unfortunately,
mom and dad could be on a date and recapture the
right.
magic so they wouldn't get divorced and it wouldn't be so ugly. And
Exactly. And
so
that's what I wanted to do with it. And so um that was the intent. That was the intent, was to get this group back together, plus have a reunion of former Starbase productions to come in and kind of throw it all under one umbrella script and make this commercial, get people working together again and move on.
and
And
let's talk about all those productions that
mhm,
you brought together. You
mhm.
obviously you had Michael L. King,
Yep.
for
Valiant.
Starship Valiant, and
Yep.
he was your captain.
Hmm.
And you got Vance in there as
Yep.
Menard,
Yep.
both a good Menard and an evil Menard, and
Yep.
Constar Menard, and
Yep.
however many
Three
Menards there are.
Menards in that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, it's crazy. And let's see who else. Who else was there from other
John Snow. He was from
Johnson?
Ajax, the previous. Um, that's how that all started. Was supposed to be Starship Ajax before it became Starbase Studios,
Yep, that was
and
the
so.
fellow who brought over
Mhm.
the sets initially. The one who found them in Austin was John.
No, that was
Um,
Jim.
well, Jim was one who built them.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the fellow
yeah.
who brought them over, John Hughes.
Oh,
Or,
John Hughes. Yeah, correct.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he brought them over to Arkansas to Oklahoma.
Mhm.
And he was going to be starring in Starship Ajax. That was going to be the next one that came out. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, Ajax did not. I mean, it filmed a little bit, but it didn't get a lot of itself going.
Yeah.
And then Starship Valiant ended up kind of lapping it.
Right. It took
It got it.
over basically whatever Ajax had done before, kind of rolled into Valiant, and Michael King took the helm and went on with it. So, yeah, that's how that all worked. But yeah, we tried to get a reunion of all those people that had worked, as many as we could get. Plus, we wanted to have some volunteers come in and, kind of fill the bridge positions and be walking through the halls and and that kind of thing. And so it was ambitious, but it was definitely not to be an episode.
Now, it was based on something that was written by Adam Mullen, correct?
Right. It was his story. And shortly thereafter, when I started casting the people to be in it, I got a call from my script consultant, Glenn Miller, and he pretty much said, "Oh shoot, we got a problem. Red alert, red alert." And then he proceeded to tell me that, okay, he's learned that they're going to do a mud short in Star Trek Discovery with all the guidelines going on and all that kind of thing. He's pretty much telling me we're going to have to scrap the story.
Because your
And
story was a Harry Mudd
yeah,
episode.
right. It was going to be a mud escape story from the penal colony, and that's how that really worked. And so with that in mind, I had to rewrite the story about a month before we were going to shoot. And and then we were having casting problems because there were people who schedules wouldn't allow it to happen then, and I'd already delayed it once from an earlier time frame. And I said, okay, well, if that's the case, then I need to step up and be the main actor so that everybody else that's there is a smaller character, so that if we have somebody not show up or can't make it, we can just kind of wing it and get that film done, get everybody working together, which was my ultimate goal, and do the commercial. And that's what we did.
So you filmed the commercial, you filmed everything over a weekend, right?
Yeah, it was about a 6-hour Saturday. Yeah, that was the 19th was a Saturday. About 6 hours, we did it all.
You did it all. Now, once again, this was never meant to be a full episode.
Correct.
So now that your episode was quote unquote in the can,
Yeah.
then what happened? I mean, it was just going to be a commercial, and then it was not that long after that Starbase Studios sort of ceased to be, at least as a set. They were going to be
Right.
kicked out of Dogpatch.
Right.
It ultimately ended up being sold at auction in early 2019.
Mhm.
Glenn Wolfe took some of his stuff back, ended up using some of those pieces to build a whole new bunch of sets over at Warp
Right.
66 Studios. But anyway, so you've got this, not a fan film,
Right.
a commercial,
Yep.
and you could have just said, well, we tried, and throw up the footage that you had and just let people enjoy it or whatever. And
Right.
instead, you decided to make a fan film. When did that happen?
I think it was, well, when we finished filming, about a year went by. And the only thing that was really happening during that year was that Michael King was working with Brady, Craig on the special effects, and that was happening in 20. That would have been in 2019. No, that was still in 2018. Hang on here. I'm going to actually look. I don't remember the date very well myself. So,
It
um,
was so long ago. It's
yeah, it was
pre-COVID.
long enough ago now that remembering all the dates is next to impossible. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was in the third and fourth quarter of 2019 or 18. The special effects were created, and then we had another problem. According to Michael King, there was some kind of drive problem with the special effects, and they were almost lost. And at that point, I was so occupied with trying to do whatever I could to help the set owners rescue the bridge from the from Dogpatch that I kind of just shelved it and said I'll come back to that later. And so I let it go and then my editor then had a bunch of he was doing some videos for a real estate agent and selling houses, and they were doing crazy amount of work, and he was just overwhelmed and basically told me this would have to wait for a while. And so when we finally got into the post production, it was, it was 2020 in about September, roughly. And we worked on it on and off until the end of December. So about 4 months post production time to actually get it. And during that time, I worked with another guy who because Miller was ill or not around anymore. I ran into
Glenn Miller
another.
passed away.
He passed away, and I forget the date, but he passed away, and I went out and got another guy who had done a lot of directing, and and I said, hey, here's my big problem. I said, I don't know how to roll this up and create a sort of episode rather than build the commercial and release it. It's kind of like, so we toyed it over while we were doing the editing. The editor was doing the editing, and I kind of left him alone to do that because he's been a buddy of mine since the 3rd grade, and I knew I could trust him to do that part without me. And so I let him do a lot of that, and it kind of evolved to where we could get it to the point where I go, okay, here's how we can do it. We can essentially say, okay, we're going to film the first part of it, and then we're going to add the second ending as another alternative universe, we'll say, or another section, and we'll just edit them together. And we never had a theme because I was gonna try to film another. When we decided to make it an episode, I wanted to film the scene where you'd see words become the character that he was. And so I wanted to film something in Georgia, but it was too cost prohibitive to get everybody that I needed and go and do essentially one scene and get everybody there and make that happen. I just couldn't afford to do it because the budget on this episode was about $270. That was pocket change. So
and what did that money go towards? I mean, 270 is
it was basically to help a few people who were in sort of economics straits and didn't have a place to stay because I needed them to be there, at least one night. And so it really went to help a few people with hotels, a couple of people to eat a little. And that's really all it went to. Everybody else did it, purely volunteer. That's the only thing I spent any money on it to make that happen.
Well, that's the thing about fan films is they can be done on the very, very, very cheap. And or they can be done for $20,000 like I did, and
sure,
it's amazing how fast that money just goes away.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, we need one of those. Sure, like that money, and then suddenly you're just like, okay, we don't have a lot of money left, and you're just like, actually, we did a lot of budgeting early on. It was just, we budgeted for a lot of things that we didn't know about. Like there were the known knowns, and there were the known unknowns, and then there's the unknown unknowns. It's amazing how many unknown unknowns you have.
Yeah.
When it comes right down to it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what made you decide to turn it into a fan film, though? I mean, at this point, you could argue that Starbase Studios was gone. There were so many things.
The business still exists. It's just not doing anything.
Well, it's hard to have Starbase Studios without an actual Starbase Studios to film on.
Right.
But the sets were gone by the time most of this was happening. It was now 2019. You're still working on it.
Yeah.
The sets were, for all intents and purposes, poof.
Yeah.
The people had all moved on.
Right.
I mean, I know that Michael, L. King was still making another episode of Starship Valiant. Hopefully, we'll be making more than that after that.
Yeah.
Vance is still making his stuff, but they've moved to other pastures, and you've got
Right.
this footage. Some people might have just said, "Oh, we tried, whatever." What was it in you that said, "Okay, I want to get this to the finish line, even if we don't finish first"?
Okay. Here's why.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time hassling other fan filmmakers to complete what they started, to make sure that, because so many people were volunteering and doing fan films, and there was simple episodes that weren't getting done, so I spent a lot of time hassling a few of those people, say, we need to get this out. Even if you have somebody else finish it, let it come out. So when I'm sitting there thinking, how the hell can I do this? I want to live to what I was saying to other people. And I go, I've got to get this out. I've got to get it out. I've got to get it done. I got to twist whatever arms I need to do and figure out a way to get this out so that I live up to what I was preaching to others to do, which was to finish a film. Don't let it go in a can and never come out. And so I had to do that for myself, even though I felt like I was, trying to throw together something that was grossly incomplete. Although I gotta say, when we edited it together and actually got it to be in the arrangement that it's in now, I was amazed that it flowed as well as it did. And I go, well, the old saying was, whenever you can't edit something together, or you need a time lapse between two different scenes, even if they were incomplete scenes, you used a beauty shot of the Enterprise, some music, and you transition from one to the other. So we did that a lot, and it flowed so well. It actually told a story, and I was surprised, and I go, okay, let's finish it. So we did that, and then we had to do the alternate ending. And I don't know if anybody caught the Easter egg that's in there, but there's this simple way to kind of tie it all together. I went, and if you've ever watched Law and Order,
Mm-hmm.
if you watch the intro,
Dun, dun,
where
dun.
where they dun dun. Well, there's a blunk blunk in from a Star Trek sound effect that's right before the episode starts. And so we kind of took a little Law and Order thing and said, okay, we'll just throw up a title, we'll say something, and then it'll jump right into it. And that's basically how we pieced it together to make it, at least sort of tell the story.
Now, there's another question in all of this, which
Mhm.
is, why have the alternate ending in the first place? I mean, you could have just ended the episode before that, and
Because it's the same thing as what we were just talking about. It all the people that came to that, the second ending had the most people in it of the production. And if I left that out, then all those people came for nothing. And I didn't want to do that to them, because I felt like I had an obligation to release all of it that I could. And so that's where we dreamed up, hey, let's just say it's another universe. Here's the way it ended. Here we go. Here's another ending. All those people get to be part of it. All those actors and everybody that was part of it got to be part of it. And it made sense to just do it, even though it would have been easier to flip it off at the end of that, of the first ending. And so that's why we did it. We just want to make sure that everybody got their day in the episode.
All right. Well, that's certainly fair. Now, one thing people are going to notice, obviously, is the sound quality, the audio quality. So, first of all, what happened that resulted in the bad audio quality, and why
Okay.
can't you up the levels on the audio?
Okay. Basically, the problem with the audio is there was two things that happened. We had to default the day of the production, the sound backup sound that would have got us a much better, cleaner track. Um, it the equipment failed us. And we were not able to use it to capture a second redundant better quality version. And so we had to rely on the camera mic, which is the absolute worst sound you're ever going to get when you're making any kind of a film. So we had to default to that, and that was our only option. And of course, in a fan film, if you're wanting to do it the right way, the best thing to do is have redundancy on your redundancy, so that you have a backup camera, you got backup sound, you got backup people, you got backup actors. If you do it right in a fan film, that's what you have. But we were not able to do that because of everybody was worried about guidelines. People were worried about the dispute that we had, and people didn't want to get involved. And it was just it was what we got handed, and we had to make it work. So the audio was really bad. And my editor, Alex, is he's the king for me, because the sound that you hear in the episode it may be not loud enough. It may sound low at times, but the reality is that it was so bad that when I gave it to my editor, he called me up and said, there's so much background noise from the generators that we used to light the set, to the little swirly thing up on the roof that's supposed to ventilate the building, would occasionally just bang, and you would hear that in the background on some of the takes. And so he basically said, I don't know what I can do. And I said, come on, man, you're the king of editing. You can figure out a way. And he actually loaded it up. From what he told me, he loaded it up, and he went and edited in between all the words and blanked out all that noise. And
Oh
then
man.
on the voice, we were able to take the noise and filter it out. But depending on how far you went in that process, you would also take the tone quality out of someone's voice. And the big thing that we were worried about, and it's apparent in some of the scenes, is that you can't hear them well, because we had to do so much noise reduction that we reached a point where it was compromising their voice integrity. And so we had to have this balance, and just leveling it up. Well, we could have done that a little better. I think we could have done that a little better, but then we were already into like the third and a half month of post production on it. And I wanted to get it done because I needed a break from everything that was going on. And, I felt like, well, you can tweak, you can edit, you can rewrite, you can change things, and you can keep going for years and never release something. So at the end of December, I just said, okay, it's good enough. We accomplished all the goals. Yes, we can make it better. Yes, it is better, a little better now. There's another version that had a few more scenes that we had to take out, that will eventually probably release, depending on how well this film does. Um, if there's a demand for it, we'll do it. If there isn't, we're done. So there are two more stories that have been outlined for this character of mine. that could be done in the future. But I'm just going to kind of hinge it on, can I make it work without having to go and break the bank to get them created?
There's that.
Yeah.
Uh, so that kind of leads us into the future for you.
Yeah.
You stepped away from fan films for a while. I do want to ask you really quickly. So you said that this was essentially done in December. It's October now. Why the 10 months between when it was finished, or at least when you said it was finished, and releasing it now?
Yeah. A lot of it had to do with the fact that I wanted to release it on the anniversary date of Mud's Women.
Ah, okay, fair enough. That was
And that,
early first
yep,
season, so that would have
yep.
been about
And
October.
so, right. And so that's Vance Major came back to me when he goes, when are you going to release this thing? And I'm saying, somewhere around the anniversary date of Mud's Women. And he goes, oh, okay. And he came back and said, okay, well, you want me to help you with that? And I said, you want to? I said, I wasn't sure that I could do it justice myself because I kind of stepped away and I kind of wanted to not, do the whole kit and caboodle and kind of finish the year at a minimum with it. And so he came back and helped me and then get it released and on the actual date. Unfortunately, it happened to correspond with when Shatner went in space, but it's all good.
Oh, he's such an attention hog. Didn't he realize you were trying to
Yeah.
release your fan film? Um,
Yeah, exactly.
oh well.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So
but what does the future hold now for Words? Are you coming back into the fan film fold?
yes, but I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that yet.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
the Starbase Studios name I still have. The business is still registered in Arkansas. There is my own personal ambition of building my own building and recreating some of the sets and essentially bring up Starbase Studios again. But whether or not that happens, I'm not sure. I've been asked to help on a couple other fan films, especially with Vance Major. And I'll probably do those coming up. And I'll get back into it if people, want me to help. I mean, or if I I have several that I'd like to do myself, the second and third story of my character Words. So it'd be nice to finish those out, but there's so many unknowns with where to film, how ambitious you can be about filming on somebody else's sets. It's hard. So, but I'm definitely going to try to sneak back into the arena and help with some more fan films out. And,
You get bitten by a fan film bug. I remember Sam Cockings said to me as I was interviewing it at one point, I was still in the middle of doing interlude, and he said, "So what's your next fan film going to be about?" I said, "Let me finish this one first."
right.
And he's like, "Yeah, but what's the next one going to be?" I said, "For God's sakes, just stop rushing me.
Yeah.
I might not even do another one." He's like, "You're going
Oh
to do
yeah.
another one, John."
Yeah.
um, yeah. So you never quite get it out of your system. If I
Right.
make enough money in cryptocurrency, like Ray Myers, my big donor did, I actually do have two fan films in mind that I want to
Sweet.
do, but it's like I gotta make my first million in crypto first.
I hear
We're,
that. It'll
we're
it'll
we're
be a
getting there. We're
little
only like 3 or 4 or 5 zeros away from
right.
that.
Well, let me know if you need help.
I will actually. What I really need is to find female dancers in the Florida area or the Georgia area. So
Mhm.
that's going to be interesting. And that's
The
all I'm going to say
Florida
about it.
area, it shouldn't be too hard. I mean, one of the things that I used to do was to try to find those cosplay ladies to, that would be interested in being in fan films. I still got a pretty good network out there.
Well, I don't need cosplayers. I need people who can actually dance.
Oh, I see.
They have to be
Okay.
good dancers, like commercial dancers. I discovered that there was
Ah,
something called commercial dancing, and it's not what you think it is. Uh, not not the pole dancers, but
right,
no,
right. I get it.
there's actually in Los Angeles you can go to schools that will teach you how to dance professionally for
Mhm.
money, and backup dancers
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But I have no idea where you can start with that.
right.
But then I also have to bring a certain person in from Germany to make this thing happen.
Ah,
And then of course there was the fact that when I made interlude, I had to I had to promise certain people this is going to be my one foray into fan films, and I was going to just get out and live a normal life again. So, but anyway,
ah,
that's just me.
yeah.
Uh,
Right.
well, anyway, words. This has been a wonderful interview. Chance to reconnect with you, because I used to talk to Words a lot back when I was trying to smooth
Right.
things over with Starbase Studios. But
Yep.
anyway, so I am congratulating you on finally getting Words Women out, because I've been hearing about it for years.
Yeah, and if you get a chance to watch it, one of the hidden gems I think is listen to it on the best audio that you can do it, either headphones or surround or whatever it is, because Alex, the editor, put a bunch of Foley in there that's you're not going to hear on a PC speaker. So if you get a chance to actually listen to it
Get
that
the
way,
headphones out, huh?
yeah, yeah, you will hear a little bit better than, yeah, you'll hear it a lot better, and that side of it is I'm pretty proud of. I thought that turned out well, even though some of the other things were less, but still.
As I told you
Mhm.
via text the other day, and
Mhm.
instant messenger, I had mentioned that I had turned the volume on my PC all the way up, so I could
Yeah,
hear the words,
yeah.
and then suddenly the transporter effect comes in, and the speakers are just like blown.
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah,
so yeah,
yeah,
I'll try it again with the headphones, and we'll see if that goes a little better.
yeah. It's I blown away when I listened to it that way, because that was one of the strengths I thought our production group had when we were doing stuff in the past. So I just knew that particular part of the sound would make up for the shortcomings that might have been on some of the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Well, anyway, once again, congratulations on finally getting Words Women out there. I do hope that you can continue walking your path, making your trek in fan film. So, anyway,
Appreciate it.
I wish you well. Stay warm there during the winters there in Kansas and the Missouri area.
Yeah, it's supposed to be bad this year.
Well, you can be in Southern California. It's nice and 85 degrees out right now, but
Yeah.
much of our state is on fire. So,
Yeah, exactly.
keeps us warm when we
Right.
don't have to be. All
Okay.
righty. Well, anyway, sir, thank you again.
Mhm.
And I guess I should wish you a live long and prosper, huh?
Sounds good to me.
Take
Thank you,
care, my
sir.
friend.
Yep.